So I will bring this to you considering you have a father or had a father and you have a son. How has it influenced your relationship with your son, how your father raised you?
I would say that having grown up with a very conservative father, I will not call him a traditionalist, but let me just say he was conservative. I was brought up by that conservative old man. Luckily, he also, being conservative, he also loved education. And as I was growing up, many of my culture was inculcated in me along the love for education that he had. Though he was also taken to school just a bit, but in those days, I would call it, or rather, it was referred as good education, because he went up to class 8. Not today's class 8, then class 8. After there was a class they were calling matriculation or something, from a primary school. After the matriculation exams in standard 4, they went to another school. They used to call it, was it intermediate? Yes, intermediate school. Primary and then intermediate school. So there was some kind of, if I may be allowed to use that word, modernity in him. But he was still the old Kikuyu father. And I was brought up in that kind of setup. Quite traditional, though with a bias of or hunger for modern education. So having grown with two aspects of this life, I got quite a bit of my own Gikuyu culture and this so-called modernity. And in that, I can see that the same influence that my father had on me as I was growing up, I've seen it transferred to my sons today. And I have tried the best that I can, though of course with a lot of clashes in between, because the sons would look at me and would see me as a dictator, too harsh on them. Maybe a person who loves to give them a hiding on their backs, versus some of the parents that their peers had, who are a little bit soft, or maybe modern parents, as opposed to me, the conservative one. And that's the way I've tried to bring them up. I don't know what effect that has on them. Maybe it could have been negative. We will see tomorrow with their behavior. And I would say, as much as my father was not shy to drive his point home, this is the way I want it. And it's just like this it has to be. I remember one time he told me, son, get this and get this straight. This is my home. This is not your home, nor your mother's. It is me who shows the direction. And he also told me one time that I should watch the geese. Who leads? Today they will say or call me or refer me as a chauvinist, a male chauvinist. Well, I'm not, but I still believe that. It is also reinforced by my belief in God. They won't love this, today's women, but that is the way it is. That as I go back to the Bible, as Christ loved his church, so to you, man, my son, should love your wife. But the fact that you love your wife just as Christ did, he too was the head of the church. And so you should be the head of your house, the head of your wife. So with those teachings inculcated in me, I have more or less transferred the same to the son. And I must admit, I see some friction in his life. I do see it. Because in him there is that he learned. And there's what the so-called modern world would want to be. I can see there's a lot of friction and clashes in his life today. Yes.
I think for me, I would say that I feel like my dad had to raise us between a change. There was a change from what he was taught by his father and what he has seen the new era requires. So for a very long time, he was always the enforcer. You start with that, and then you realize you're in a generation where the kids are finding it hard to understand the concept of enforcing. Now they turn from being a father to being a friend. You have to listen to your kids. My dad always reminds me that in a conversation, there's one person who's talking and there's a listener. So you have to choose between both, who at this point is talking and who is listening. But always the first person to have the back seat to listen is the son. And I don't know whether for me, currently I don't have a son. If God was to bless me with a son, I feel like I would take up the same approach where we are going into a very woke generation, as they call it. So you have to move with the change, because at the moment you might stand with the principles, but the principles are ending up being, as you've called it, the friction in their lives. Yeah. So for your relationship with both your father and your son, what kind of activities have you had to partake over the years that you've been with them, so that to build the relationship and still give the respect that is father-son with a gap?
It is still tricky, or it has been tricky. The little that has been there, it's mainly based around the homestead, what you can be able to do together at home, and most of the times don't include play over there, because you cannot imagine I, at my age at that time, I was bringing up my son.
Yeah.
I would be there playing games with him, because there is this feeling in me that is childish, and grown old men don't do that. Maybe an activity that could really bring us so much together. It's a little bit of some kind of work, some activity, some economic activity, I would say. Maybe something in the shamba, maybe something in business, but hardly anything else here, because I would not even kick his ball 2 or so times, just once, and I feel it's not for me. So there was hardly any other activity that would really bring us together, all make us bond.
I think I would say the same, because from exactly what I'm getting from you is that us men, we are not emotional, and we don't find the emotional joy of doing the quote inactivities. That's where the women have an upper hand, because they can tap into the emotional part of them, and they're able to do simple things like just go on a date. It's very hard to find 2 men seated having it's very rare, but the activities, as you've said, it's always about the homestead. The only time I get to sit down and have a conversation with my father is when I'm in his home, reminding me that there's so much to do. So I believe that there's very few activities, unless we are just trying to push them down, but there are very few activities you can do, and we choose the most random and non-emotional situations to have serious conversations, which is amusing sometimes for a father and a son.
True.
True. But the respect is there. I think for the respect, it goes by anything that your father says is not negative criticism. It's always toward the positive criticism.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
At the same time, through this muddled or confused way of trying to bond in our own way, we find that we have left channels open,
True.
whereby the son can be able to easily come to you,
Yeah.
even share.
Yeah.
Unlike my father, I find that there's that in my son. He has doors open, many channels open, but he can share even his most intimate issues with me. He'll even he could be able to tell me, this is it.
Yeah.
Oh, I remember even one time as I visited him in school. He was in class 5, I think. And while I visited, a certain young little girl passed by, and apparently they were friends, and she came to greet us as parents. And when it was all over, we want to go home, he asked me, hey, Dad, what do you think about that girl? Is having such thick legs good for a girl? Oh, I asked him, what do you think? Is she beautiful with her thick legs? I think she is. I also told him, I think she is too. So you can see he's still very young, and he wants me to confirm whether, I don't know, it's my guess, whether his choice is right. Unlike my day, I wouldn't dare tell my father that.
About the thick legs.
Oh, that would be the end of me. So at least there's that difference, the way I am relating with him and the way I related with my father.
So you've touched on this, but I would want to know the expectations that your father had for you, and do you feel like it influenced a lot of your decisions when you were growing up? And similarly, have you had the same expectations for your son?
Yeah. My father expected a lot from me. He wanted me, number one, to always perform very well academically, and at the end of my studies, he wanted me to pursue studies that would lead to a career in law or in diplomacy.
Yeah.
And I grew up like that. And surely I really wanted to be either of the two. A career in law or a career in diplomacy. And as I was studying, I did not get enough points to take me to the Faculty of Law. And when I didn't get that chance, I went for a bachelor's in arts with some inclination on international relations. And I find that even on my son was really telling him, you can be this or you can be that. And I find that he actually has tried to do as much as I tried to show him or to advise him. You could be this, you could be that. Of course, I wanted him to excel in whatever he does. And I hope he does.
I think for me, I'd also say that there's something about Kikuyu parents that I usually call passive reinforcement. They're just somewhere, they see you, the road is this way, you're maybe going this way. They'll just give you an idea that if you take this turn, it will make more sense. And in your head, that sticks. It sticks with you, and you end up finding yourself on that route. Yeah? And sometimes it doesn't have to be verbal. Sometimes it's just invites a friend who's a doctor, a pilot, a lawyer, and asks them, can you tell my son about this career and why do you think it's, yeah? So you might not think you might just think it's another visit, just another friend, but sometimes it sticks with you and you're like, I want to be like so and so. And that has always been a good way of just making sure that people don't deviate too much, because there is a chance of choosing the easy way. Yeah. And sometimes I'm always reminded that the hard things are always the most rewarding.
True.
Yeah, the easy ones end up having a lot of challenges in front, but if you put your head to it, definitely the hard one will be the most rewarding. So, yeah.
True. And I believe it's every other parent would want the son to be successful, not to be a sloth, to be focused.
Yeah.
And with that, he'll be able to really be in charge of his tomorrow. As I was saying in the letter, keep focused on the ball. Your eyes should always be on the ball. And your goal should be, of course, living on the fast lane. You don't want your son to be on the floor, working on the floor, skullduggery as they call it today. As a parent, well, that's what I always encouraged the son. Live life on the fast lane. There's nothing wrong in driving a Maserati if you work for it. But don't drive a Maserati through wash. Don't go looking for the easy way to get that Maserati. No. Don't get elected by stealing votes. No. Get the votes through genuine votes. Don't say the end justifies the means. Even if you went through the window, through the roof, and you are an elected member of parliament or even the president himself, integrity issues come along. And the world will not respect you for that. God is not happy with you either. Although, again, that same God can also allow you to steal the vote and be the president of this country, just as much as he did allow the Pharaoh, Ramses III, to be the Pharaoh so that he can squeeze the Israelis and they remember their home. The same case. Yes.
So in the new era, there has been a push towards equality, and equality also transverses through the whole gender roles. Yeah? So how, as a father, how have you felt that dictating your son or directing your son towards understanding the importance of first the gender roles, and do you feel like even with the times changing, there is need to have the same?
I made a comment and said, I think this will be the most difficult part of this conversation.
Right.
Because I do not believe in so-called new era. Oh, okay, I can accept it is the new era, but it is not the era of ERA, but ERROR. Because when you look at what is happening in the world, you'll see certainly, even if you're not religious, but you can see that something is damned wrong, terribly wrong. Whereby we are talking of equality, talking of freedom, name it, any crazy thing that you can look for today, you will get it, of course, in your Bill of Rights. It is guaranteed. There's nothing wrong, basically, in equality. Nothing wrong. In actual fact, even from the beginning, Adam and Eve, they were equal. And that's the way God intended. Because even while he was creating, he did say, let us create man in our own image. And of course, the image of God is not, God is not like me. Doesn't have such a nose. That's not what he was saying. He was not saying, let us create a man in our own image, because after all, we don't look the same. I don't look or appear like a Dinka or a Nuer somewhere in southern Sudan. He is tall, huge, and what have you. So to Eve, it's not that tall, slender, Dinka girl. He was saying the image of God was not physical. He was a spirit. He is a spiritual being. So the man he was creating is a spiritual being. Before he came to form man, kutoka kwa matope, he was first a spiritual being. And that is why when he is formed out of the dust of the earth, God breathes into his nostrils and he becomes a living being. So the Bible is saying essentially that Adam and Eve, when they were created, God says he created them. And he named them Adam. He did not name them Adam and Eve. After the formation from the dust of the earth, that is after the separation of the two spirits, that is when he became a living being. And so too the woman. And they were equal, basically. And there's nothing wrong in equality. No. But even if we are equal, there has to be a head somewhere.
Right.
You can even imagine a situation whereby you are in your house, your wife and yourself, and you come with an idea. Let's do this. I think we should follow this. No, we can't do that. We will do this. Where will you go? So, the fact that equality is there, it was in the Bible, it is in our Constitution, in the Bill of Rights, and it can still be practical today. But there has to be a head.
I think I would, as I can hear from your comments, there has been a great power of culture and religion to try and bring a stop to this argument, but the aspect of humanity, which is now a thing that has grown years and years as we go by, it's now catching up with the culture, where it's now, people are like, put aside the culture and the religion. Let's look at the humanity aspect of it. And it always ends up as a two-faced sword, where sometimes I find it very interesting when you hear a lady's perspective when she doesn't have a man, and a lady's perspective when she's married. Because before then, she's championing for equality. But the moment she's in a house, she's now reminding the man, I am here to back down first, take role. So whatever you're championing before you get into a house that you want to call a family, you leave the others with the pressure, and you've gone back to the original script. So it's been a, as you've said, a very hard topic to understand sometimes. And these days I usually feel like if we are putting everything aside, then let me and the person who I want to be with have that agreement. I am the head of the house. I need to take charge with respect to everything else, so that, again, you don't end up as a story on the TV that you're doing this and this. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And just as a reminder, you know, as I mentioned earlier, that as Christ is the head of the church, so is man, is the head of his family. Actually, you are the pastor in your house. And if then you abdicate that role and you reverse it, it is contrary to your culture. So as far as your culture is concerned, you really are not a man. And as far as God's teachings is concerned, again, you're not a man. And if ever you ever tried to imagine that you'll make heaven when you have reversed these roles, I can tell you, you are not going to heaven. Maybe you can go as far as the tree up there, but not heaven. Because that is contrary and reverse to culture and even nature. I've told you that my father one time told me to watch the geese. That's nature.
Yeah, so there's always a point we get to where there's going to be, as you mentioned it, as friction. So we are all human. We have our vices, we have our virtues. So when the vices are now loud enough for the father to notice, how do you approach it when it comes to the father-son and you want it maybe resolved and actually keep the respect that it comes with it?
As I said, it is very difficult. even to discuss, because it's also difficult to imagine. These vices are there, they're in existence, and you might find that they have actually found you right in your house. Your son could be there. And you have been, I imagine, advising my son as the father, watch out. Even if we really are talking about a new era, this is actually an era that has been sourced, propagated, and even spread by the West, and especially Hollywood, the one that has really given us this dirt. And it is something that I really don't know how I can be able to sit down with my son and discuss it. Or I don't know how I would even take it if it was said, oh, this guy is this way. I don't know. Maybe it could lead to my death. Because it's something that it's not human, it's not natural. It is the devil who has brought about these things. And we have never practiced them, although they have been in the world. It's not that it's a new thing, because even when God was giving his law, he talked about it. Do not do this. You will find these things in Deuteronomy. So they have been there. And if you may allow me, I go a little bit outside our main topic and say that these are things that have been there. In actual fact, even when God was overthrowing this world through the floods, it was because of these very many unnatural things. And then the same Bible says, as it was in those days, so it shall be at the end time, at the coming of Son of Man. And this is the hour. So it is not really very surprising. But of course it would be a shocker to me that I found you, my son, in it. Even after my letter to you. Watch out. Don't listen to these voices beside the road. That is one of the voices. Don't do this, my son. But you did not listen to me. And then here you are. That it is okay to be gay. It is fine to be married by Kengori, a fellow man who is marrying a fellow man. And marriage, we know, is between male and female. And I come to know that this is what you are. I don't know how I would react. I don't know how I would go about it, because I had advised, please, watch out. Peer pressure. I was in town today, as I was preparing to come here, and I saw a young little boy. And I looked at him and said, my God, this is someone's son. There he is, behaving like a she, and even walking like a she. and dressed like a she. And you can imagine how angry I was. And then it happens that is you, my son, and you are seated here. I don't know how I would react. I don't know even whether I would have even the mouth to say anything to you. Maybe I could think of sorting out that problem. Go inside, get my njora, and work on you, my njora.
So I think for me, I believe that there's something you mentioned at the start where we were talking about the channels that you have to open so that you can allow. It doesn't have to be even only sons. Sometimes this vice is transversive into daughters. Yeah. So, unfortunately, there's the extreme vices, as I would call them, and there are vices that are easily managed. There are some which are tough bite to have, and I believe that sometimes if we go back to the Bible, is that God will always present you with a challenge. I would go back to Abraham's situation. God will always present you with a challenge, a very tough one, and you have to make a very tough decision. And sometimes it's always good to leave that one channel that will allow you to make a very tough decision. Because one thing is that my dad always reminds me, I have an elder brother. He always tells me, I have 2 sons and 1 daughter. And all of you only have one father. And the moment you close that channel, everything else will fall apart. And you will always remember, even when you're walking, whether you've disowned your son or whether you've decided not to partake in the information that they've given you considering the vices, it's always good to give that one channel because it doesn't change anything. The fact remains that you're his father and he's your son. Yeah.
That's all right. And I wish it would be so on me. Yeah. But you see, what will drive me mad is knowing that this is my son. I never taught him this. He never saw it here. He was never taught this at school. This is something that he has just decided to pick and run away with it as if it is a prize. Even if that channel is still there and open, it will take God's grace to really sit down, discuss, talk about it. I don't know. Imagine him seated here you are, and he's telling me, Dad, accept me as I am. Where is that grace? I talked of going in and getting my njora. And I bet, even if it's against the law, I think I would please my God if I did away with him. I remember there was a guy like that in the Bible called Japheth or Jephthah or something like that. Phinehas. When Phinehas, as they are going on their journey back to Israel from Egypt, at the camp, they had pitched camp somewhere. They started their things, interacting with communities they had been told by God not to. Right. And then one Israeli man gets one of these foreign women and passes the congregation where it is gathered into a tent, and there with their thing. It was so annoying. And Phinehas came out. He went into his tent and got his spear and went into that tent. And as they were lying there, he pierced them so hard that it went through the man, through the woman, into the ground. And he killed them. And then God comes and says, in the congregation, says, I'm very happy about it. Thank you, Phinehas. At times, some of these things, you got to do that. Let him do it, go there, do those things, and that is the end of the relationship. But don't do it. Then come, bring your nonsense here in my presence as if you are laughing at me. No, 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 no. You are my son, yes, I love you. Kabisa. But no. That you are yellow. No, 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 no. My son, no.
So as it comes to an end, there is always this fear of a parent giving too much, that you end up having a quote-unquote lazy child who has been spoon-fed everything. The story of succession goes a long way back, and now again the equality has come into play. Even daughters can now actually success whatever you had. So you're passing a very prestigious baton from yourself to your son. What would you advise? How would you approach it? And is there any way that whatever you worked for feels with the same pride while giving it to your kids?
As a parent, and I'm speaking on behalf of many parents, of course we have had our challenges. I would want to bring up my son in the best ways possible, and the best way I know how. And there should be limits as your son is growing up or your daughter is growing up. As much as we talk about sons succeeding us, nothing wrong with that. But it is the ideal, because you would want your son, yes, to succeed you. After all, he's the one carrying your seed. But if you have done it, you have done your best, and he has not passed this test, he has not passed this training that you have tried to, then the African fellow should not succeed you in anything. No. If your daughter is there and she's capable, let her do that. Let her take control, because she has proved capable. And let your good-for-nothing son be there. If he has to be an employee of your daughter, so be it. If his son, if ever he gets married, because most of them don't, and if they do, they think that this life is just as easy as it was at his mother's house. And you see, they are not able to run their homes. If he's married, fine. And if he gets a son or a daughter, sawa. My daughter will do the needful, the children. But he will not succeed me simply because he's a son. No. No, 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 no. I will not allow that. Absolutely no. I would rather have my daughter. After all, we have better relationship with our daughters than with these thugs. So it is upon him to prove himself that he is able and capable. Because he carries a very huge burden of my legacy, taking it forward, prospering it. But if he can't, surely, and I've tried to since he was young, what do I do?
I think for me, there's always something my dad always reminds me, that even when he's gone, you carry a very big responsibility to make sure that whatever he worked for is not all in vain. Because one thing I know about parents and wealth is that once, as you grow older, is that you realize the wealth you're accumulating, you're doing it for your children. Yeah, for you, you leave them here, as everyone will, but you're always working to make sure that they got what you didn't get, but also with a catch, as you've said, where you can give someone something and they will misuse it, and for you at your towards the end where you're almost going to be with the Father, you wouldn't want to do that. You wouldn't want to see such a to feel such a burden that you've quote unquote failed. As parents usually say that my success is my family. My family, what people out here are calling wealth, my family is my wealth. And that's what my dad always reminds us, that as much as there's so much that I can do, just remember that the basic necessity of wealth for me was, first of all, education, and then now the wealth that will come later. Have I educated you enough to understand what this means and what you're supposed to do with it? And will it help also the generation that I am expected to have as a father-to-be soon? So I think for that, the succession story always has, it has always been a conflict of interest. From family, you have the pressure to do what is right for your kids, but you also have the pressure of preserving what you've worked so hard to do for them. Yeah.
Absolutely, that's true, and that's great, and that's the way it should be. But as parents, we should not give too much. We should not spoil. Not the real spoiling as we know it, but we should not spoil our children by overindulging them with what we have worked for. Let it not be that this child will get into their mind or his mind that whatever he wants is there. Let it be. And it is there. They say his wish is my command. Simply because I was not lucky enough to have been brought up in such an environment now as mine. I went through poverty, and so I don't want these children to suffer poverty or lacking. But what is important is to give them, yes, what you didn't get, but not to spoil them. Because what happens is that they get this feeling of entitlement. They don't work for anything else because they know dad is there and whatever he is entitled to me.
Right.
Let not that thing grow into them. No. Even if it means talking, or talk and remind them that this wealth is mine and my wife, not yours.
Yeah.
Tangu wakiwa wadogo. Because this is where most of our sons are getting lost.
Right.
They're so lazy. Even he can't take or pick a cup that he has just used from here and take it to the kitchen. I can see some daughters who have been brought up like that, that even she's 20 and still the house girl is being asked whether she has served mtoto. Nukaire mwana shai. A 20-year-old woman who should be running her house.
Right.
Ndiye anaitwa mtoto na anapelekewa chai bedroom, breakfast, na hata akiamuka hawezi chukua hizo vyombo, take them to the kitchen, anaziwacha hapo. Even her undergarments have to be washed by no. Abana, as parents, abana, let us teach our children the way to live on this solid earth. So, as much as we want our children to have the very best, let us also have limits and train them to be independent and to work for whatever they want. And let them always know that whatever you're asking me to buy for you, I worked for it. And I'm going to buy for you what you wanted now, but get to know that I worked for it. Always remind them. And I'm preparing you so that tomorrow you will buy for yourself. You will not come to me. Right. Not a daughter asking you she wants to celebrate her birthday and she does a budget and tells you, this is my budget for my birthday and I'm going to have it in a B&B or whatever it is now, which are turned out to be slaughterhouses, and she gives you a budget of 150,000 for a birthday. I think you got to be examined by the doctor as a parent. Thank you very much.